welcome everyone. Today we have a guest who named is Colin Brett. He is from PlayerStats Data, the company that how to say it correctly, but doing really good in youth sports and creating a lot of data for youth players. And Colin, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, so I'm Colin Brett, co-founder and CEO of PlayerStats Data. We're specialists in individual youth soccer player development data solutions, and I've been in around the soccer analysis world for about 9.5 years as an analyst, and now as the CEO of a data solutions company.
Okay, that's interesting. So could you tell us a little bit about what you guys do, a little bit more of your work?
So what we do is we provide objective player performance and player development data monitoring solutions, and we provide it back to youth soccer coaches and club staff, and we also provide it back to the players themselves and their parents. So we have a range of data solutions under a soccer intelligence banner. So we have Soccer Intelligence Coach, which is essentially that club staff product that allows coaches and club staff to be able to view what happens game by game and over the course of the season from a team perspective and from an individual player perspective. And we also have a mobile app called Soccer Intelligence Player, which gets this level of objective granular performance data into the mobile phones of the players themselves, and as a result the parents will be able to access it too. So in essence it just gives the objective view per game and over the season to all stakeholders at youth level, trying to not take away the opinion side of the game, because that's extremely important, but it's also very important that coaches, club staff, players and parents see evidence around development progress or whether a player is regressing, and they can then work to address that or work on other aspects of a player's performance.
Yeah, that's interesting. So basically your product serves both ways. It serves to the players, coaches, and then to the actual players.
Exactly. So a very simple example would be that we take the video footage from our clients after each game, and we then upload the footage into our tagging software solutions. We have the players, we have the lineups with the players' names, jerseys, numbers, etc., and we collect every single event in the game for our client's team. So it could be Colin, successful sideways pass, Kirill, shot off target, so on and so forth. We do this over the course of the game. Once the game is over, we collate that data into the Soccer Intelligence Coach platform, into the Soccer Intelligence Player mobile app, and we then tell the club and the player that everything is ready and upload it. We don't tell users what should happen, what somebody could have done better, what we would have done here. We just simply tell them what happened over the course of the game, and then allow them to interpret exactly what they want from the data output, the video output, and the data insights that we provide. So we provide all the information and evidence back to them for them to then action over the course of the week before the next game.
Okay, yeah. How quickly do you provide this information to your end customers?
So from the time that we're able to download the footage, we usually just go in straight into their VO platform or whatever solution that they may be using at the time. So once we download it, collect all the data, put it through our quality control checks, which are quite intensive and quite stringent, and then upload that into the client's data solutions, it takes about 3 hours in total. So it's on average 900 individual player events at youth soccer level. It does depend on the club that we're working with and their style and culture. Some are very possession heavy, so there might be a lot of possession events which might slow it down ever so slightly. But we aim to get it back to clients anywhere between 2.5 to 3 hours. We're rarely, very rarely longer than 3 hours.
This is a really quick turnaround. Like on average in the industry, like companies like Pixelot and VO, they promise to deliver data and huddle within 12 to 24 hours, and you're doing it really quickly.
Yeah, we're pretty lucky that at the moment time zones work well for us. Most of our clients are based over in the US, so they upload the footage to their camera platforms basically while we're asleep here in Ireland and here in Europe. And when we wake up, the footage is ready for us. We have the lineups, so we're able to download the footage early in the morning, get to work, collect all the stuff, and by the time our clients wake over in the US, if it's not completed, it's pretty much finished as soon as they have their first coffee every morning. So it's important for us to get it back to them as quickly as we can, so that they can work on it whenever if they don't look at it for 2 or 3 days, that's okay. But for us, if we can get it back to them to our exceptionally high standards as quickly as we can, that's our job done.
Okay, interesting. So can you tell us a little bit about your strategic plans as a company?
Well, our strategic plans at the minute with regards clients is to get in as many as we can. What we do, our focus primarily is in the youth soccer space, because we're very much focused on player development. So it's working with clubs, working with players, game by game, season by season, provide them the evidence and the video and the data evidence to help them progress along the youth soccer development journey. With that in mind, because of the relative nature of youth soccer in various parts of Europe, we've focused most of our efforts, if not all, on the North American market in the US and Canada. So at the moment we're working with clubs across the MLS Next, the NAL, and Alberta Soccer. But for 2025, strategically, we're obviously keeping an eye on the youth club sector and what we can do with it. But we're looking to basically close the loop insofar as move from under 13s to under 19s and include the college setup. So those players that are looking to move towards the college space, we're looking to help. But why can't we help the college? Why can't we be the solution at the college level as well, and allow them to implement our software into what they do, but also help them to look back at potential recruits and see how they compare with current players on their roster and the likes of that. So 2025 will be very much still a solid focus on various regions within the US and Canada, but we're definitely going to explore the college market and never say no to the high school market as well.
When you're talking about youth level, like what exactly the ages are you talking about?
Under 13, U13 to U19, and here in Ireland it's U20. So that kind of age, we're getting the bulk of interest from U15 upwards, especially in the US, because that's when college becomes a relatively it figures quite largely on the horizon for a number of players once they get to that age level, whereas U13 and U14 is still that introduction phase into the supposed higher levels of youth soccer. But yeah, the clubs that we work with at the moment, we're very lucky that most of them have adopted it from U13 to U19, so that they can have a widespread objective view of what players are doing across the entire youth setup. And as they invest year on year on year in what we do, they can then build up benchmarks. So they can start seeing what a U14 right back for them should do, what their data profile is, and they can start looking to upcoming U13 right backs. Are they meeting the current data profile that they have for the U14 right back? So it for us, obviously, we're happy to work with clubs with whatever teams they like, but a lot of clubs realise the impact of this longitudinal data set effect, that if it's across the entire U13 to U19 setup, they're able to get a much greater grasp of player performances and player development by bringing like one club are working with just over 200 players within that age range. So the more players in there, the more data that we're able to collect, and with the more data that we can collect, the greater the insights and the deeper the insights we can then provide.
And if we are talking about soccer market, what could you say about US football or soccer, how they call it right now? Why US?
It's an interesting space, and I say interesting because here in Ireland, I always had the impression that we were relatively large when it came to soccer and soccer participation, but the size of some of the clubs in the USA are just mind blowing and mind boggling. They at the moment, our product is primarily focused at the competitive and travel space within the North American market, due to the level of registration fees that they tend to charge at that level, but that in turn then creates the need for that edge in retaining players or helping players get towards their end goal, which more often than not is the college space. So they need those tools that will allow them to keep players and get the players they have to where they want to get them. So that's why we're focused very much on that area, as opposed to the recreational or small-sided games. It's more so the travel it's the MLS Next, the ECNL, Girls Academy, all the various associations, the NAL, all those associations we're looking to target.
And what about the challenges for getting the stats out of the use data? Because, let's say in all of this MSL, Premier, England Premier League, all of these big leagues, right? You have a beautiful cameras recording, and you have a lot of, you have a lot of sources where you could gain the data from. Let's talk about use. What are the challenges?
For us, our challenge isn't as great as you would expect. We just need video footage. We just need that MP4 match footage. And with the likes of Trace, Speedio, Pixelot, VO, Replayer, that AI camera technology is becoming much more common at youth soccer level, at each and every match, often at training sessions. So once that video footage is there, and they're all of a relatively similar standard with regards following the ball and not really missing the crucial events that happen in the game. So once we're able to get access to that footage, and we know what player is wearing the number 2 jersey, who's wearing number 11, what substitution was made between the 60th and the 70th in the 60th minute, we don't have much in the way of challenge in collecting the data. The data sets that we collect are pretty simple around possession, defensive, attacking, goalkeeping and set piece data. So it's very clear as to whether something happened and whether it's successful or not successful. So we don't assess expected threat, we don't assess expected goals, we don't go into player location and how close a blocker is to a shot. We just simply collect player event. So we've kept the process pretty simple, pretty basic, but with maximum impact, I believe, because it's able to take the bones of 900 to 1000 individual player data points from each game that were otherwise going unused and not collected, and giving them back to the coaches, back to the players and parents. And they're all pretty data savvy now and getting more and more able to interpret the data. So once we send this simple data back to them across our two solutions, they're able to make sense of it and action what they need to action on the training grounds, in the next game, and maybe with their individual coaches.
So you only need the video, and my question was more of is there enough teams that are recording their games? Are there enough teams that are recording their games, or is it still room for improvement?
There, being honest, Krill, excuse me, I don't know the exact numbers or the exact percentage, but it's very high. It's very high. Even here in Ireland, who are relatively slow to adopt the technology, it's becoming much more prevalent at the highest level of our youth game, and even at the layers underneath. So no, camera footage is much more accessible than it was before. It's much more affordable for the majority of clubs. I won't say that every club can afford it, but then with our two solutions that we put forward to clubs, they have a certain amount of revenue in order to be able to afford what we do, be able to afford the video. So that's why we kind of go down the competitive and the travel route, that they invest in sports tech, they invest in coaching resources, in player resources. So we're just another possible tool for them to invest in. They don't need a full analysis suite, they don't need a top of the range camera. Your off the shelf AI camera solutions work, and they are becoming far more accessible and affordable than even they were 5 years ago. So one of our clients actually, we did a game about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and we counted 7 different cameras at the pitch, because some of the parents had their own cameras and they set them up for their kid. So you had the club camera, you had the opposition camera, all the same. I'm not going to drop any company names and give them any promotion, but so you had the home and the away team had their own camera, and then you had 4 or 5, I think it was 5 cameras belonging to parents at different positions around the pitch. So that will give you an idea about how widespread camera footage is becoming over in the US.
Yeah, it looks like youth sports are getting recorded better than professionals.
Yeah, that's a fact. And the fact that they all tend to use the same camera, if not kind of, it's the same solution, maybe not the same company, they all do relatively the same thing. So you kind of know what you get from each different solution. They don't tend to be much different with regards to final output from a video perspective. So it has definitely helped to standardise video footage and make it far more accessible, and we're able to unlock a huge amount of value for our club clients for what they spend on their video technology.
Okay, let's head down to this point of conversation. Is that you've mentioned that you collect some, general stats, not going too advanced for youth clubs. I think everyone curious to know what are the, let's say, the data that youth sports needs currently. I assume they don't need like Opta kind of the data. So tell us about it.
Yeah, I don't believe so. But what I do believe is that I believe in us collecting everything, but giving the tools to each individual club and each player and the parent to filter through what they're looking for. Because especially at, I believe at youth level, every player is very much unique, more so than the senior professional level, because they're all at different levels of physical maturity, at different levels of psychological maturity, and so on and so forth. Add in different clubs having various cultures and various styles of play and philosophy. Some would be more interested in, pass completion and the number of chances created, by a number 10, by an attacking midfielder, whereas other clubs may or may not have such importance on chance creation. It may be how many players they bring into play over the course of each game. So to answer your question, like I said, we collect about 80, I think it's 84 metrics, successful and unsuccessful, across defensive possession, attacking, goalkeeping and set pieces. And you know, everybody is different. You know, some will look for the KPIs at one club could be completely different to the KPIs at the other at another club. But what I'm finding is pass completion is a complete nonsense. It's a pointless metric because it doesn't show a player's willingness to progress the ball forward or their attempt at playing a riskier pass or breaking a line. So we've found that we've added progressive pass attempts and progressive pass completions, which we find is becoming important for coaches. Not that my player has had 100 passes in the game and was successful 99% of the time, but if all of them were going sideways or backwards or whatever, that doesn't show much by way of progressing the ball or taking a risk. So we find this progressive attempt and progressive completion are quite important, and one that we have created ourselves. There's a lot of the larger data providers, they go around interceptions and recoveries, but we've added an extra layer at youth level. So we've gone progressive interception and unprogressive interception. So it basically captures whether a player intercepts a pass and then what they do afterwards. If it's a positive event, it's progressive. If it's a negative event, like to give away possession or a free kick or whatever it may be, then it is an unprogressive interception. So it gives that little bit extra context that yes, the player is able to read the game somewhat well, but their next event after that reading of the game needs to be improved on. So we do find that has become pretty important. But after that, shot efficiency is another one that I like. We collect all the types. We collect 5 different types of efforts on goal. But shot efficiency is a nice capture percentage as to how many efforts on goal hit the target. And to me, at youth level, I think that's a little bit more important at times for your attacking players, that they're hitting the target much more regularly than not, as opposed to, you know, goals are obviously quite important. Goals win games, but if a player is hitting the target quite regularly, game by game, quite consistently, I think that's a pretty good case that the player is developing quite well as an attacker. So that extra metric, I think, is quite important from a coach perspective.
And how long does it took for you to create these metrics and to understand, like, okay, this is working and that's not? And what was the process?
We went into the youth space, I would say, about 3 years ago, September, October 2021, and we did about 12 months testing with academies in Ireland, the UK, the US and Canada. We were in the senior professional space around talent ID, and we had, I think it was 110 different metrics there, but we realised that not all of them are applicable to the youth player. So we went to a lot of academies. We did a few hundred games worth of testing across the 4 different countries to find out what youth coaches wanted to see from their players with regards to development. So we must have cut back nearly 30 metrics, if not more, and then we added a couple that we were missing. So there was a lot of back and forth with youth soccer coaches and academy directors, technical directors, those kind of figures within the youth space, to ask them what they would like to see from their players' performances. And then it was just a simple case of, are we able to objectively collect it? Are we able to very simply say that's successful and that's not successful? We wanted to avoid opinion. We wanted to avoid any grey area where somebody could argue, well, that's not this, that's actually that.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree on this, and developing your metrics over period. Yeah, this is a con of being a relatively small company, that you could be flexible to each of your clients, right? And you could deliver real value. Yeah, speaking with people, helping young players to develop, that's awesome, and I think you are in the right way, on the right. Colin, I wish you to be a CEO one day that no one could get in reach to and could grab. I hope that happens one day when you have so many employees that you just don't have time to speak with anyone. Thank you, Colin. Thank you for being here and for sharing your story and about your company. It was really interesting to learn from you, and I'm pretty sure that everyone listening us will have a huge benefit of understanding about your company, about youth sports. It was great to chat with you.